Hi everyone, this is Mr. Martis, and this is our first video for CIS 115, other than that bear video. Um, Last Monday night, I asked everybody to send me an email telling me, a little bit about yourselves, and asked to tell me if there was anything that you had problems with in CIS 114. One of, well, not the one of the, I think the most frequently cited um, in these emails was two-dimensional arrays. So for a first review and the first project, you all saw that I already assigned a project. Um, I assigned for the project I assigned monkey business, which you all hopefully have seen by now on Canvas. And for this video purposes and a review, I wanted to go over the classic two-dimensional array in C++ or actually any other kind of programming is just making a multiplication table. All right, I want to just kind of walk through this kind of slow. None of this is meant to insult your intelligence. Dr. Zimmer's told me that the majority of you are like, you know, up with everything that we're going to review, but this is a review, so maybe there's one little thing you pick up in this. So I hope you take the time to go through this video. It's not really time intensive. I keep these rather short. You'll never get a half-hour video from me. You might get several shorter ones, but you won't get a real long one. All right. No real special, anything real special needed to run this program. This one, I've just got IOStream and IOmanip because I got the IOmanip because I use set width. All right. For this matrix, I'm gonna keep it small because I want to try to walk through it, and I usually clumsily walk through this. So just bear with me. I might make a couple of mistakes, but I'm going to try to explain it as I go through. All right, I'm making a 5 by 5 matrix. So you can see right here, I define rows as 5, columns as 5. Then I make my two-dimensional array here in row 11. So I'm all set up to work. Over here on the left, and I'm using Excel as software to demonstrate this, I'm going to just fill this matrix for the most part in. All right. I'm going to make a 4 by 4 matrix. I know I've got this 5 by 5, but dealing with the zeros times things kind of makes things a little wonky. And you'll see when I print this out what this does. So I've got a 5 by 5 matrix, but my program here is going to make a 4 by 4 multiplication table. And I think before I get started explaining it, I think I'm going to run it just so you can see the way it prints out. So you can just follow it across there. Um, you know, columns, you got a column, you go over to the third row, a third column down to the fourth row. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. So you see it does work. And if I wanted to expand this, this would be easy to do. All I got to do is change the constants. I could make this a 12 by 12. I could make this a 100 by 100 just by changing these columns. All right. So let's start working through it. I've got this broken up into 2 for loops. I could do this in 1 for loop. If you kind of smash everything together, you can do the math, put it in, and see it out at the same time. I don't think that's a good way for explaining it, so I've broken it up into 2 for loops, and I just want to walk through it. If for some reason you get a little bit confused, it might be best that's one of the things I like about doing these videos. At least my students in the past have told me is they, in class they might be taking notes and get lost, but this way they can just pause, rewind it, and fill in their notes. I mean, they've also told me they put me on 1.5 just to get it done faster, but that's kids. All right, so here we go. We're starting in this for loop here. This is going to fill in the two-dimensional array. Start into it. All right, I'm going to use the I's and the J's and everything that you've seen before for loops. I just recently, actually in the last like 18 months, found out the I's, J, K's, L's is one of the things that's been handed down from the Fortran language. I've always did this without actually questioning, why do I use inside of for loops, use I, J, K, L, M? And that's because that was the integers inside the Fortran language. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And I did this for so many years without knowing that. All right. So outer for loop, all right, is the rows. Right here, you can see the rows. That's the outer for loop. All right. We're going to work through the rows. And then as we get into a row, we're going to go to the columns. So what we'll be doing, the inner for loop is the columns. So we're going to start out not in 0, this row right here, right? And you'll see why in just a few minutes, because of multiplying the zeros. I'm going to just be working on this segment right here, filling this in with integers. All right, I am in row 1. So row 1, we're going to be talking about I, so that's going to be a 1. We're going to go down. Okay, we're in row 1. Now we're in the inner for loop. All right. You can see the I's in the rows. That's going to increment. That put the first time through. Now we're inside the for loop, inner for loop, and we're talking columns. So as we start into that, int j equals 1, right? So we're just going to go ahead and fill this in. We got I equals 1, j equals 1. Now we're inside the work area, right? That's what I call this, because every nested for loop for a two-dimensional array has the same format. Okay, you got the outer rows, then you got the inner columns, and you work through it. But there's an area that once you get to it, it's actual work area, and that's right here. So I times j, we look over here, it's 1 times 1. We're going to assign that to mult 1, 1, which would be right here. 1 times 1, we're going to assign that a 1. Okay, we're still here inside the inner for loop. It increments, all right? Right? J now equals 2. Work area, mult 1, 2 equals 1 times 2. We fill it in, 2. J increments, becomes a 3. Now we've got mult 1, 3 equals 1 times 3 equals 3. And then obviously the 4. J increments again, gets to 5, and 5 is no longer meets this condition. It's no longer less than columns. So we kick back out to the outer for loop. All right. The outer for loop now, all right, I increments, and now I is 2, which just means we're working on row 2, which is actually row 3. We're in the subscript 2, but you can see we skipped the zeros. So now we're at 2. We're going to work our way through the J's again because we're in the inner for loop now. All right, we go back to a 1. So we got mult 2, 1 equals 2 times 1 equals 2. J increments. All right, now we got mult 2, 2 equals 2 times 2, which is 4. J increments again. It's up to a 3. Right? Now we got mult 2, 3 equals 2 times 3. So this equals 6. Then finally, this inner for loop increments again, right? Which makes j equal 4. So we got mult 2, 4 equals 2 times 4 equals 8. So we're half full now. All right. We just finished this because j will increment. It'll become 5. All right. 5 is not less than columns, which is 5. So it releases back out to the outer for loop. And now I has incremented again. It's up to 3. So let's make it 3, right? Now we go back and work inside the inner for loop. Okay, J is back to 1 again. All right. So you can you get a feel for this now. Mult 3, 1 equals 3 times 1 equals 3. J increments to 2. 3 times 2 equals 6. J increments to 3. 3 times 3 is 9. J increments again to 4. And for mult 3, 4, it's 3 times 4 equals 12. Right? We go through the whole process again. We go back to, finally, I increments to 4. Inner for loop. Okay, we're in the working area. Mult 4, 1 equals 4 times 1. J increments to 2. Mult 4, 2 equals 4 times 2 equals 8. Oops, I did 3. So, okay, it increments to 3. So, mult 4, 3 equals 4 times 3 equals 12. And finally, we get to J equals 4. That's the last cell in our two-dimensional array. 4 times 4, J4, mult 4, 4 equals 4 times 4 equals 16. All right, now we have totally filled up our two-dimensional array. Right, the next thing we want to do is see it out. Print it out. So I'm going to just do the exact same thing. I cut and pasted this whole for loop up here, right? And I'm just going to work through the whole thing again, all right? And all this does is print out, all right? You can see set width 2. I wanted to make it nice and neat. That's why I put the IO_manip up inside of the header files, all right? And set width 2. And each time that this visits a cell, it's going to print out. It's going to in the two-dimensional array, it's going to print it out. All right. I could work through this again, but you can see how it works. 1, 1. It's going to print out. It's going to print out. It's going to print out mult 1, 1. All right. Then it's going to increment through this whole row. Mult 1, 2. Mult 1, 3. Mult 1, 4. It's going to increment, and then it's going to be mult 2, 1, mult 2, 2, mult 2, 3, mult 2, 4, and it's going to work through just the way filling up the two-dimensional array did. All right, this isn't much code. All right, I'm going to run it again now to show you. This is just going to print out this working window. I left the zeros blank, row 0, column 0, just because, and I didn't print those out. You can manipulate it. I could isolate just doing these 4, right? When you print them out, you can do anything. You've made a 5x5 matrix. You can do anything you want with each one of these cells inside of the matrix. Elements inside I say elements and cells. Each one of these elements. You get 25 elements. You can manipulate them however you want. Programming is it's pretty impressive, the things you can do with it. All right. This isn't much code. If you're struggling a little bit, if you're one of the people that identified this as something you might struggle with, I would suggest you just type this code in and play with it. All right. I'll run it one last time. You can see this just outputted exactly what I've got here. All right. If you all have any questions or are having any problems, and I don't foresee a lot of problems, but don't be embarrassed. I remember I've thought two-dimensional arrays were a little tricky when I first did them years and years ago. So please reach out to me for some help. I can make like a video like this, a little individual video, a help video, and send it to you, email it to you, um, to help you with the monkey business program. It's a nice, neat little program. Matter of fact, I don't even think it's as complex as this because this program, I mean, in the monkey business program, you're going to make a 3 by 7 array and use every element in the array. This one, I kind of did a little something that might be confusing to some, but like I said, if you need help, please reach out. I will please check your email. This first 2 weeks, because of what happened last week, is a little clunky, but please be checking your email later this week for anything that I might be sending out. I do want to make this partially a flipped class. I want us to work in class, and you can watch the videos outside of it. Um, and in the past, my students have always said that they like using this to share, or if they get stumped, they rewatch the video a few times and see if my explanation made things a little bit more clear. All right. All right. You all have a good week, and I hope you enjoyed your Monday off.